Did you ever think that your biggest enemy might not be your own thoughts or emotions? We spend so much time battling our fears, our doubts, those little voices in our heads. But what if the real threat isn't what's going on inside you, it's where you are, who you're around, and the spaces you keep returning to? Let's be real. Most of us wake up, grab our phones, and start scrolling in the same room, with the same people, doing the same things, day after day. At first, it seems harmless, just routine. But slowly, almost without noticing, you feel your energy slipping away. You start forgetting who you are, not because you're weak, but because certain places have a way of draining us. This isn't just some mystical idea. Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, believed that our psyche, our mind and spirit isn't just shaped by what's going on inside us. It's also deeply affected by the world around us, by the environments we inhabit every single day. Some environments have a silent, almost invisible power. They don't attack us outright or make us feel bad in dramatic ways. Instead, they quietly wear us down in the background. At first, you might not even notice it, but then your thoughts start to shift. Your confidence, once steady, begins to crumble. That spark you used to have, it starts to fade. Jung's big message was this: be aware of the spaces and energies you invite into your life. The human psyche is tough, but it isn't invincible. What's around you matters. In this video, we're going to look at 7 dangerous places Carl Jung believed you need to avoid, not so you can run from life, but so you can protect your mental strength while living it. Because some places don't just hurt you, they can change you in ways you don't even realize. But how do you spot these places before it's too late? Carl Jung devoted his life to understanding the hidden forces shaping our minds. He wasn't interested in quick fixes or surface-level advice. He wanted to uncover what really drives us, including the unconscious, the shadow, and the archetypes that influence us without us even knowing. One of his most profound realizations was that we're often shaped more by where we spend our time than we care to admit. So, think about your own life for a second. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt weighed down, like the air itself was heavy? Or finished a conversation and ended up feeling small, quiet, unsure without any obvious reason? Sometimes it's not even about the people, it's about the energy a place holds. Rooms and buildings aren't just made of walls and paint. They carry a psychological atmosphere, an emotional residue left behind by everything that's happened there. Some environments carry a hidden weight that can seriously affect your state of mind. Jung believed these places aren't empty. They're full of patterns, emotions, trauma, and unresolved energy. When you step into these psychological fields, they don't just stay put, they actually start to reshape you from the inside out. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's not just about your own mind. It's about the unconscious influence of the environments you put yourself in every single day. This isn't only about avoiding sketchy neighborhoods at night. The dangerous places we're about to talk about are psychological landscapes. Some are actual locations, some are symbolic, but all of them are powerful. They can change the way you think, how you feel, and whether you're able to stay mentally strong when life gets chaotic. Let's start with the first one, which you might already be in without realizing. 1. The echo chamber. This is the place where every voice around you sounds just like yours. Your opinions, beliefs, fears, even your insecurities, they're all reflected back at you over and over until they start to feel like absolute truth. You might think you're thinking for yourself, but are you really? Or are you just repeating what you've always heard? Jung warned about the dangers of collective thinking when the group drowns out the individual. He believed real strength comes from confronting yourself, not hiding in a crowd of sameness. But the echo chamber makes that confrontation almost impossible. It gives you the illusion of certainty, but quietly steals away your growth. Take your social media feed, for example. The accounts you follow, the posts you like, the conversations you have, are they challenging you, making you think, or are they just confirming what you already believe? In an echo chamber, any difference is seen as a threat. Dissent is avoided. Curiosity fades away. The mind, instead of expanding, starts to harden. And with that rigidity comes fragility, because anything new or different becomes intimidating, even scary. Jung saw this as a kind of spiritual stagnation. It's a mental space where growth just stops. Not because you can't grow, but because your mind isn't allowed to stretch beyond what's comfortable. And it's not just online. Echo chambers exist in real life too. In your friend group, at school, at work, even at family gatherings, anywhere only certain opinions are welcome and the rest are quietly pushed aside. At first, these places might feel safe, but safe doesn't always mean healthy. Real psychological and spiritual health often comes from discomfort, challenge, and the courage to move beyond your comfort zone. Ask yourself, when was the last time you really listened to something that made you uncomfortable and just sat with it? Mental strength isn't about always being right. It's about being willing to be wrong and learning from it. The echo chamber blocks that growth. It traps you in a loop of your own voice until you forget how to think any other way. And once you lose that ability to think in new ways, you're left wide open for the next dangerous place, one that looks like ambition but feels like despair. To dot the comparison arena. This is the space where your value is measured by how you stack up against everyone else. Every look, every scroll, every conversation becomes a quiet competition. Someone else's success feels like your failure, and no matter how much you accomplish, it never feels like enough. Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." But these days, we carry another, quieter burden, the weight of all the lives we constantly compare ourselves to. Think about it. The lives you see every day online are perfectly curated, often far from real. In the comparison arena, you're not just watching others, you're absorbing their choices, their timelines, their highlight reels. Each post is like a silent message about what happiness, success, or love should look like. After a while, you start shaping your own life not to make yourself happy, but just to keep up. It's not about what matters to you anymore. It's about survival, about running a race you never agreed to. This pressure isn't always loud, but it's always there. And if you're not careful, you'll start living a life that's edited by comparison, instead of one created from within. Ever achieved something you were proud of, only to feel empty because someone else did it louder, bigger, or faster? This place weakens your mind by turning your focus outward. Instead of becoming more of yourself, you become less of others. You compare your depth to their surface, your real time to their best moments. Jung believed in individuation, the process of becoming uniquely you. But in the comparison arena, individuation gets crushed under the pressure to conform, to keep up, to win a game that isn't even yours. The most dangerous part, the more you compare, the more you lose touch with what you actually want. You start to forget your values, your joy, your inner compass. So, ask yourself, is the life you're chasing actually yours, or did you borrow it from someone else? Real mental strength in the comparison arena isn't about winning. It's about stepping out of the race entirely. Clarity comes when you stop competing for validation and start listening to yourself. But that clarity doesn't always last, because soon you might find yourself in a different space, one that's even harder to recognize. 3. The masked circle. Let's talk about the masked circle. This is the place where everyone wears a carefully crafted version of themselves, the version they think is most likely to be accepted, liked, or praised. In the masked circle, it's not about what's real, it's about what looks good. Authenticity takes a back seat, and being vulnerable feels like speaking a foreign language. Carl Jung talked a lot about the persona, the mask we put on to fit the expectations of the world around us. He never said it was evil, but he did warn us, if you forget it's just a mask, you risk becoming it. Think about the spaces where you feel like you have to shrink yourself. Maybe you laugh at jokes that don't feel funny. Maybe you nod along when you actually disagree. Maybe you hide parts of yourself because you're scared they won't fit in. That's the masked circle. It might be your workplace, your group of friends, even your own relationship. It's any environment where love or acceptance feels conditional, where you have to perform to belong. At first, it feels like no big deal. Pretending seems easier. You tell yourself, it's just for now, or it's not worth the hassle. But over time, the mask hardens. The longer you wear it, the more you lose touch with your real self. Eventually, you stop asking the big questions, who am I? Really, because even thinking about the answer feels risky. Jung believed that real mental strength comes from integration, accepting your shadow, your flaws, the hidden parts of yourself. But in the masked circle, anything that threatens the image gets pushed deep into the shadows, where it can't be seen, let alone healed. Ever leave a group and feel totally drained, not because they were toxic, but because you had to keep pretending? Wearing the mask too long doesn't just hide you, it isolates you. You end up feeling alone, even in a crowd, because nobody really knows you, not even you. And here's the sad part. The more you blend in, the more you disappear. Sometimes that disappearance doesn't even start out in the world, it starts at home. 4. The silent home. Now, let's move to a place that hits close to home literally. The silent home. This is the place where love is supposed to live, but is rarely spoken aloud. Where feelings are buried under routines. Where conversations never go deeper than the surface. Silence becomes the unspoken rule. From the outside, the silent home can look stable, peaceful even. But inside, it's a slow erosion, a place where emotional needs go unspoken, unmet, and eventually unfelt. Jung believed that the emotional patterns we experience early in life form the foundation of our psyche. If those patterns are built on silence and absence, the result isn't strength, it's suppression. And suppressed emotion doesn't just evaporate. It waits. It simmers. It finds ways to break through when you least expect it. Have you ever lived in a place where sharing your real feelings wasn't safe? Where vulnerability was met with dismissal, misunderstanding, or just plain silence? In places like that, you learn to keep it all inside. You force a smile, even when you're hurting. You cope instead of connect. Over time, coping becomes your identity. But coping isn't healing, and silence isn't peace. In a home built on silence, you become an expert at pretending everything is fine. But underneath, your mind is constantly battling itself, trying to balance what you feel with what you're allowed to show. That internal war slowly chips away at your sense of self. You cannot develop true mental strength in a place where emotional honesty is unsafe. Jung taught that healing begins with expression, with turning toward your inner world, not away from it. But in the silent home, expression is weakness, and vulnerability is taboo. So, ask yourself, when was the last time you truly felt heard without having to shout or beg for attention? Now, imagine the other extreme. A place so loud externally or internally that you can't even hear your own thoughts. 5. The chaotic space. The chaotic space is everywhere these days. It's the environment of constant buzz, constant stimulation, where the noise never stops long enough for anything meaningful to take root. Life becomes a whirlwind of to-do lists, notifications, background chatter, and endless obligations. Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." But how can you look inside when you're being pulled in 100 different directions? Overstimulation doesn't have to come from a physical place. Sometimes it's a mental lifestyle, a brain always on, always needing to react, never allowed to rest. In this space, your inner voice doesn't disappear. It just gets drowned out. You move fast, you answer messages instantly. You fill every empty moment with something, anything, because sitting still feels almost dangerous. Why? Because in silence, the truth starts to speak, and that can be terrifying. Have you ever overloaded your day with tasks, not because they mattered, but because you couldn't stand to be alone with your thoughts? In the chaotic space, stillness feels threatening, rest feels lazy, reflection feels pointless. But the mind isn't built for endless speed. It needs rhythm, moments to process, to digest, to realign. When that rhythm is gone, so is your clarity. Chaos doesn't just tire you out, it shatters your focus, leaves you scattered and irritable. You start to mistake movement for progress, noise for meaning. Jung believed that meaning is found in depth, not speed. But the chaotic space tricks you into thinking the opposite. It fills your days with urgency, then leaves you empty. So, here's the question. If the noise suddenly stopped, would you recognize the sound of your own soul, or would it feel like a stranger you once knew? This is where the next dangerous space begins to form, not outside, but deep within you. And it might just be the most deceptive one of all. 6. The abandoned self. The abandoned self isn't a room you walk into. It's a space you create inside yourself, little by little, each time you ignore your own needs, silence your instincts, or betray your truth. You don't abandon yourself all at once. It happens through small compromises, a yes when you meant no, a feeling ignored, a boundary crossed, until one day, you wake up and realize your life barely reflects who you are. Jung believed that the unconscious holds the parts of us we reject, suppress, or fear. When we exile those parts, they don't just disappear. They show up as anxiety, self-sabotage, even physical symptoms. Ever felt stuck in a job, a relationship, or a situation that drains your energy, but you stay because the unknown feels scarier than the pain you know. The abandoned self is all about comfort over courage. It's about numbing instead of feeling. It's about becoming so good at fitting in that you forget how to stand up for yourself. Most people don't even realize they're in this place. They call it maturity. They call it responsibility. But real growth doesn't happen at the cost of your soul. Jung often spoke about individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are, not who the world expects you to be. But you can't start that journey if you've silenced the inner voice that tells you where to go. Pause for a moment. When was the last time you checked in with yourself, not with your phone, not with your friends, but with you? Is there any part of you left behind, lost in the rush to fit in or please others? Because the longer you stay in the space of self-abandonment, the harder it is to find your way back. But even when you do start to return to yourself, there's one final place that can still hold you captive, a place most people never wanted to face. 7. The forbidden room. Now, let's open the door to the final and maybe the most haunting space of all, the forbidden room. This isn't a place you can see or touch. It's the room inside your mind where you lock away everything you don't want to face. Your old wounds, buried memories, feelings you were told were too much, pain you never got to process, and all the parts of you that felt unsafe to share. Carl Jung believed every single person carries a shadow, the hidden, unconscious parts of ourselves we refuse to look at. But here's the thing, what you push away doesn't just sit quietly in the dark. It grows. It seeps into your thoughts, your habits, your relationships, even your sense of who you are. Have you ever caught yourself overreacting to something small and wondered, where did that come from? Or noticed yourself repeating mistakes you swore you'd never make again? That's the forbidden room at work, the place you never visit, yet it shapes so much of what you do. Jung knew this well. Whatever you bury will eventually come looking for you. The pain you silence becomes the pain you pass on. Avoidance doesn't erase the past, it only gives it more power over your present. Most people spend their whole lives tiptoeing around this room, afraid that if they ever open the door, they'll be overwhelmed by what's inside. But the longer you avoid it, the more it controls you. The shadows you ignore become the chains you wear. Jung taught that real strength isn't about never having darkness. It's about bringing those parts of yourself into the light, a little at a time. Integration, not perfection. Healing doesn't come from pretending you're okay. It comes from facing what you've locked away, one honest step at a time. So, ask yourself, what door inside you have you been unwilling to open? And what part of your healing is still waiting quietly behind it? You've just heard about these 7 dangerous places, some outside you, some deep within. Maybe as you listened, you realized you've spent time in more than one of them. Maybe you're standing in one right now. Maybe you've been lost in the echo chamber, trying to find your own voice but getting drowned out by the crowd. Maybe you've sat quietly in the silent home, wishing someone would notice how much you needed to be heard. Or maybe you've locked yourself away in that forbidden room, hoping no one would notice the pain you've kept breathing in the corners of your mind. If any of this feels painfully familiar, you're not alone. Carl Jung understood something that most people miss. Healing doesn't start with perfection. It starts with awareness. And awareness begins by naming what was once hidden. You don't have to run away from the world to protect your mind. You don't have to move to a mountaintop or live in isolation. What you do need is to become more deliberate about where you put your energy, what spaces you enter, what vibes you accept, and which parts of yourself you're still afraid to face. Mental strength isn't about having everything perfectly in order. It's about having the courage to let go of what drains you even when it feels safe and familiar. It's about choosing, every single day, to walk away from the places that shrink you and move towards the ones that help you grow. Reflect and share. So, now it's your turn. Take a moment and really reflect. Which of these spaces have you lingered in for too long? What would it take for you to finally walk away? Have you spent too much time trapped in the comparison arena, measuring your worth by someone else's highlight reel? Have you lost yourself behind a mask, only showing the parts you think are acceptable? Have you abandoned your own needs or buried pain so deep you almost forgot it was there? Maybe your story is unfolding in more than one of these places. The truth is, we all find ourselves in these spaces at different times in our lives. The key isn't to be ashamed of it. The key is to recognize it and then choose differently. If you feel comfortable, share your story in the comments. You might be surprised by how many people relate to your experience. Your words could be the light that helps someone else finally see themselves, or the sign that lets them know they're not alone. And if you're not ready to share, that's okay too. Sometimes just naming the place you're in is the bravest step you can take. Remember this: your strength isn't built in comfort. It's forged in your daily choices, the ones that feel small, but add up over time. Every time you step out of a draining space, every time you choose to listen to your own voice, every time you face a part of yourself you used to avoid, you're building a kind of mental resilience no one can take from you. You don't have to transform your whole life overnight. Healing isn't about flipping a switch, it's about making little, intentional changes day by day, moment by moment. Start by noticing where you are. Notice which spaces leave you feeling empty, anxious, or unseen. Notice which ones make you feel alive, understood, and truly yourself. Then, slowly, start moving towards the places and the people that give you energy, rather than take it away. You're not meant to be the same person in every room, but you are meant to become more of yourself, not less. Bringing it all together, Jung's wisdom on environment and the self. Let's bring all of this together. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most people because you're willing to look at the invisible forces shaping your life. Jung's teachings remind us that the journey to mental strength isn't about closing yourself off or pretending you're immune to your surroundings. It's about becoming conscious of where you are and how it's affecting you so you can start making choices on purpose instead of on autopilot. It's easy to underestimate how much power your environment has over you. But think about it. If you plant a healthy seed in toxic soil, it's going to struggle to grow, no matter how much potential it has. The same goes for your mind, your spirit, your dreams. If you keep putting yourself in places, physical or psychological, that drain you, limit you, or make you hide who you are, your growth slows down. Sometimes it even stops. But once you see these dangerous places for what they are, everything changes. You realize you don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to keep repeating old patterns. You can choose to step out, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it means leaving behind what's familiar. It's not about running away, it's about choosing where you stand. Jung never said you should hide from life or avoid every challenge. In fact, he believed that facing life honestly, shadow and all, is how you become whole. The point isn't to retreat from the world, but to become more selective about where you invest your attention, your time, and your energy. You don't have to cut off everyone or everything that doesn't feel perfect, but you do need to pay attention to what feeds you and what drains you. Are you in places that expand your mind, or ones that keep you small? Are you around people who challenge you to grow, or people who just want you to agree? Are you living by your own values, or by someone else's script? Awareness is the first step, but action is what changes everything. Maybe as you listen to this, you recognize yourself in the echo chamber, the comparison arena, or the silent home. Maybe you noticed how often you wear a mask, or how rarely you give yourself permission to rest in the middle of chaos. Maybe you realized you've abandoned parts of yourself, or locked away pain you're scared to face. Awareness is powerful, but don't stop there. Start taking action, even if it's small. Switch up your spaces. Try spending time in new places, online and offline, that make you feel curious, challenged, or inspired. Seek real conversations. Find people you can be honest with, even if it feels awkward at first. Practice being real, not just agreeable. Give yourself space to feel. Let silence happen. Don't rush to fill every moment with noise or distraction. Sometimes the best answers come in stillness. Check in with yourself. Ask, what do I need right now? And see if you can honor it, even in a small way. Open the forbidden room gently. You don't have to face everything at once. But maybe, just maybe, you can let in a little light. Journaling, therapy, or simply talking to someone you trust can help. A new kind of strength. Mental strength isn't about having a perfectly organized life or a mind free from darkness. It's about resilience, the ability to face what is and choose what comes next. It's about refusing to let the world, or your past, shrink you into someone you're not. If you're still here, listening, reflecting, you're already showing that strength. You're willing to question, to look deeper, to change what needs changing. And that matters. So if you're ready, take this as your sign. You can leave the echo chamber. You can stop comparing your journey to someone else's. You can take off the mask, speak your truth, and start building a life that feels like yours, not someone else's highlight reel. You can return to yourself, bit by bit, and make peace with the shadows you've been avoiding. You can create a home inside and out where you're allowed to feel, to rest, to grow. Let's keep the conversation going. If what I shared resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Maybe share which place you struggle with most or what steps you're planning to take. Remember, your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. Let's help each other see the invisible patterns and break free from them together. If you found this valuable, please consider sharing it with someone who needs it. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into psychology, self-growth, and the kind of wisdom that actually makes a difference. Final thought: your strength isn't built in comfort. It's forged in the choices you make, the truth you're willing to face, and the courage it takes to step out of the places that shrink you even when it's hard. No one else can walk your path for you, but you never have to do it entirely alone. Thanks for watching, and remember, the places you choose shape the person you become. Choose wisely. Your story is still being written.